There's a strange kind of sorrow that settles in your soul when someone close to you chooses to betray you. It doesn't roar, it seeps in quietly, like poison in a cup of tea. You sip what you thought was love, trust, and loyalty, only to taste bitterness disguised in sweetness. And while the world moves on, clapping for those who wronged you, you're left holding pain that no one sees, yet God saw everything. He saw when you offered kindness, and they offered cruelty. He saw when you spoke blessings, and they whispered curses. He saw when your heart shattered into pieces in a room full of laughter that didn't belong to you. It's a mystery to many why the innocent suffer while the guilty walk free. But the ways of God are not always immediate. He does not always strike with thunder or send fire from the skies. No, often God waits. He waits until the silence grows heavy. He waits until the ones who hurt you believe they've escaped judgment. He waits until the bitterness they fed you becomes the only flavor left on their tongues. You see, bitterness is not just an emotion. It's a spiritual toxin, and when someone serves it to the pure-hearted, they don't just poison the one they aim at. They curse themselves. They plant seeds of pain in another's soil, thinking the harvest will never return. But heaven keeps score in silence, and every tear you cried is being measured by the hand of divine justice. Have you ever felt that your hurt was invisible to the world? That no one acknowledged the depth of what they did to you? That the people who smiled in your face and stabbed you in the back never faced consequences? That your bitterness became your only companion while they danced in delight? But what if I told you they won't dance forever? They won't laugh forever. And they surely won't outrun what they sowed, because God, in His perfect justice, allows the wickedness of man to mature before He brings the blade. And when that time comes, the same bitterness they used to wound you will be what they swallow. Bitter for bitter, tear for tear, wound for wound, not out of vengeance, but out of justice, out of a divine rebalancing. Bitterness doesn't only destroy relationships, it destroys souls. And when someone willingly feeds it to another person with no remorse, they open a door to spiritual judgment. What they sent out will find them. It may not look the same, it may not come in the same package, but it will arrive. Not because you cursed them, not because you prayed harm over them, but because God is just. And here's the part that many miss. God is not punishing them for hurting anyone. He is correcting them for hurting you. Because your heart was pure, your love was sincere, your loyalty was authentic, and in a world full of manipulation, your soul still chose light. That matters to God. That matters deeply to heaven. So if you feel like you're carrying wounds that haven't been acknowledged, and the people who hurt you have moved on as if nothing happened, do not lose heart. Do not fall into despair. The same God who saw you weep silently will be the God who makes them weep openly. Not because you asked for it, but because they sowed it. He will let them taste it, not just to break them, but to awaken them. And when they finally sip the same bitterness they served, they will understand what it means to sit at a table they prepared for someone else. The meal of pain will be theirs, and the only thing sweeter than your healing will be their awakening. This is not revenge. This is restoration. This is God letting them drink from the very cup they poured for you. Now let us walk deeper into the path of truth. What are the signs that this season of reversal is already beginning? And how do we know that God is at work? Quietly, powerfully, and undeniably. There is a peculiar kind of agony that follows when you're hurt, not with fists or shouts, but with silence. When betrayal doesn't arrive with thunder, but walks in softly through the people you trusted the most. You sat quietly, holding the wound. You tried to convince yourself it was your fault, that maybe if you had spoken differently, given more, smiled brighter, or loved deeper, they wouldn't have done what they did. But no matter how you rewrote the past in your head, the pain stayed. And what hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the silence that followed it. No apologies, no accountability, no sign they even noticed what they did, but God noticed. The world may forget, people may move on, those who inflicted the pain may decorate their lives with pride and applause, as though your suffering was just a footnote, but God remembers it differently. He doesn't see the smile they wear today. He remembers the tear you wiped away in yesterday's darkness. He doesn't listen to the praises they receive. He recalls the prayers you whispered in desperation when no one else could hear you. God doesn't just watch actions, He weighs them. And what they did to you in silence will never remain hidden from divine memory. You didn't scream when they tore your spirit apart. You didn't retaliate when they disrespected you. You chose grace over vengeance, and that quiet suffering may have looked weak in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of God, it became a sacred offering. Every tear you shed in silence became a seed in heaven's soil, and while the world saw nothing, heaven was writing everything down. When people hurt others without consequence, they begin to believe they're untouchable. They start to think they can act as they please and never face a mirror. But what they forget is this: God is not absent because He is quiet. He is preparing something. He's letting the seeds they planted in darkness grow to their full height, so when the reaping comes, it matches the weight of the damage they caused. The pain you endured in silence is not lost. It's preserved in the heart of the one who loves justice. And His justice doesn't always come like lightning. It often comes like a whisper that slowly grows into a storm. They may believe they've outrun the consequences. They may think your silence was weakness. But they don't understand that silence is where God often begins His most powerful work. He never forgets. Not the night you cried until your pillow was soaked. Not the morning you got up and pretended everything was fine. Not the way you broke internally while still trying to love them with dignity. Every moment was seen. Every piece of your shattered heart was gathered. And now He prepares a justice so precise, it won't just repay, it will reveal. Because divine justice doesn't just punish wrongdoing. It lifts up the one who suffered in silence and lets the world see that God was paying attention the whole time. When you swallowed the bitterness they fed you, you did it out of survival. You didn't want to become like them. You didn't want to poison others as you had been poisoned. So you swallowed the insults. You buried the betrayal. You choked on the disrespect. You tried to keep your heart pure, even when theirs dripped with cruelty. And all the while, they watched you suffer. Some with pride, some with indifference. They believed that their words, their actions, their betrayals would remain unanswered, that what they gave you in malice would simply dissolve into the air. But bitterness doesn't vanish, it transfers, and what they gave will circle back. You see, the bitterness they handed you wasn't just an experience, it was a spiritual seed. They sowed it carelessly into your life, unaware that it carried within it a reflection. The kind of pain they cause now brews quietly in the corners of their own life. They don't realize it yet, but soon they will begin to feel it. The taste of it will be different. It will arrive through broken peace, through fractured trust, through sudden losses of control in places they thought were secure. Bitterness is like a shadow. You can't always see it at first, but it follows its source. And just as they poured it into you without remorse, That same bitterness will now become the lesson they cannot escape. It won't be you delivering it, it will be life. It will be the unspoken rules of divine justice unfolding in due time, not through your vengeance, but through their own unresolved spirit. They thought they were strong because you stayed silent. They thought they were right because no one confronted them. But now the weight of what they did returns. Not as revenge, but as reflection. The very bitterness they caused is now the discomfort they sit with. They may not connect the dots at first, but life has a way of pointing things out, slowly but surely. They'll wonder why their relationships feel hollow, why joy slips through their fingers, why peace is a guest that no longer visits. And in the stillness of night, when no one else is around, they'll feel the creeping shadow of what they once did to you. It will sit beside them. It will stir in their spirit. It will echo in their conscience, even if they try to deny it. The bitterness they forced you to taste, without apology, without care, now becomes their own cup to drink. And it will not be sweet. It will not be hidden. Because what is sown in cruelty must be reaped in clarity. And when they finally taste it, they will realize it wasn't just bitterness they gave you. It was a spiritual burden they now must carry themselves. Because God lets no cruelty go unresolved, what they brewed for you in secret, He now pours for them in truth. Cruelty rarely enters through the front door. It hides behind affection. It disguises itself as concern. It wears the mask of laughter, friendship, and sometimes even love. And when it strikes, it leaves you stunned, not just by the pain itself, but by the shock of who delivered it. You trusted the smile. You believed the promise. You held on to the illusion that the person in front of you truly cared. But slowly, that mask began to crack. And by the time the truth revealed itself, you were already wounded. You were not just hurt, you were deceived. That's what makes it more devastating. If the cruelty had come from an enemy, you would have been prepared. But when it comes from someone who pretends to love you, it breaks something deeper. It wounds your faith in people. It makes you question your judgment. It forces you into silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because no one would believe you. After all, the mask they wear in public is beautiful. It's convincing. It's everything yours is not. Because your face is not a mask. It is raw, broken, and real. But there is a limit to deception. There is a boundary God has set for false appearances. Because no matter how convincing the mask, the truth beneath it will eventually surface. God doesn't let cruelty go unexposed, not when it's aimed at someone whose heart was pure. He is not just a protector, He is a revealer, and when the appointed time comes, He removes every layer of disguise, every performance, every illusion they used to cover their darkness. At first, the unmasking is subtle. They begin to trip over their lies. Their charm begins to fade. The people who once applauded them start noticing inconsistencies. Their manipulation no longer lands as effectively. The energy they use to control others turns against them. And slowly, the image they curated begins to collapse under its own weight. You don't have to expose them. That's not your battle. God has a way of letting the truth walk into the room without needing to shout. When God unmasks someone, He does it with precision. He allows the very things they used to maintain their disguise to betray them. Their own words become evidence. Their past actions come back with clarity. Their intentions, once hidden behind smiles, become unmistakable in the light of truth. People will begin to see what you saw. The confusion that kept others from believing your pain will begin to lift. Eyes will open, minds will awaken, and slowly the sympathy once reserved for them will shift in your direction. Not because you proved anything, but because God revealed everything. And in that revelation, the ones who hurt you will stand naked in the reality they tried to conceal. The beauty of divine justice is that it doesn't demand revenge, it demands truth. And truth, once revealed, cannot be disguised again, no matter how many times they smile, no matter how many people they charm. Once God removes the mask, the face beneath it becomes unforgettable, and the bitterness they fed you behind that mask will now return. Only this time, everyone will see the hand that delivered it. When someone hurts you and walks away smiling, it creates a storm within your soul. You watch them laugh as if nothing happened. You see them enjoy their life while you struggle to make sense of your pain. You question everything. Was your love meaningless? Was your loyalty unseen? You feel as though they stole something precious from you, your joy. And that's exactly what it feels like, a theft. They didn't just hurt you, they drained the light from your spirit and left you in shadows. But joy is not something you lose forever. It is rooted in your soul, not in their approval. And while they may have walked away with a piece of your happiness, God is not done writing the story. In His justice, He not only returns what was taken, He reassigns it. The joy they stole will become distant in their life. It will slip through their fingers no matter how tightly they hold it, and they won't know why. You see, when someone intentionally crushes the joy of another, they create a spiritual imbalance. Joy, in its purest form, is a sacred gift. To wound it is to offend something deeply divine, and the God who watches over joy does not allow its thieves to dance in peace. The ones who took it from you so carelessly will find it strangely absent when they go looking for it in their own lives. They may achieve success, but it will feel hollow. They may find company, but never connection. They may surround themselves with distractions, but none will satisfy. That emptiness? That's not coincidence. That's the echo of what they did to you. They interrupted your happiness, and now theirs will be interrupted by invisible forces they cannot control. It won't happen with fanfare. It will begin in the quiet moments. A celebration that doesn't quite feel complete. A relationship that lacks depth. A goal achieved that doesn't bring fulfillment. These are the signs that joy is withholding itself, not because God is cruel, but because God is just. What they denied you, He now denies them. And meanwhile, you begin to rise. Slowly, surely, your joy once stolen begins to return in ways you didn't expect. You find peace in silence. You find strength in solitude. You find purpose in your pain. And as you rise, they begin to stumble, not visibly perhaps, but spiritually. Their joy becomes like a mirage, always ahead of them, never within reach. End of poem. God has a way of balancing the scales without breaking the world apart. He doesn't need to humiliate them publicly. He simply lets them live without the very thing they stole. And eventually, they begin to feel it. That bitter taste they once forced you to swallow now rests on their own tongue, not because you wished it, but because it was written. Joy is a reward for those who walk in love and sincerity. It is not a currency to be stolen. And when someone rips it from the heart of another, they invite its absence into their own life. There is a unique kind of pain that forms when people not only hurt you, but look down on you while doing it. They don't just wound, they belittle. They mock your innocence, misinterpret your humility, and mistake your silence for weakness. They treated your kindness as naivety, your forgiveness as desperation, and your quiet strength as something to be trampled. And as they walked away from you, heads high with arrogance, they believed the story had ended with them above and you beneath. But the God you serve is not finished when others think they've written the final chapter. He does not seal life with rejection. In fact, the very ones who walked away believing they had won often become the audience to the rise of the very soul they dismissed. Divine elevation is not loud, it is sacred, and when God lifts you, He often does it in the presence of those who once laughed at your fall. The table God prepares is not for show, it's for revelation. He doesn't elevate you to get revenge, He elevates you to reveal what was true all along. That your value was never lost, your worth was never destroyed, and your purpose was never defined by their rejection. He places your blessing in full view, not to gloat, but to testify. And those who thought they had buried you begin to realize they were standing on sacred ground all along. You don't need to fight to be seen. You don't need to argue for validation. When the time is right, the same people who dismissed you will be unable to ignore what God is doing in your life. Not because you demanded their attention, but because the hand of God upon someone cannot be hidden forever. Light eventually breaks through even the deepest dismissal. It begins subtly. The doors that were once shut to you begin to open. The conversations that excluded you now mention your name. The very circles that disregarded you begin to echo with respect. They see the new strength in your walk, the new clarity in your voice, the divine peace surrounding your presence, and they remember how they treated you. This elevation is not just a physical change, it's a spiritual repositioning. You no longer look for acceptance in the places that once rejected you. You walk with the confidence of someone who knows they are seen by heaven, and that awareness becomes your crown. It radiates not from pride, but from healing. As for those who look down on you, they are left with a choice. Confront the truth of who you really are, or be haunted by the memory of their judgment. Either way, they will witness it. The God who lifts the broken does so in a way that no one can ignore. And as He lifts you, He gently reminds the world, the one you dismissed was the one I was shaping. Your rise becomes a mirror, not to shame, but to reflect. And in that reflection, they see not only your strength, but the hand of God that raised you. Abdullah Chalama, this episode, comfort is deceptive when it's built on the ruins of someone else's peace. When those who hurt you walk away unbothered, living in ease, while you're left to pick up the pieces, it seems unjust. It seems cruel. You see them laughing, building, celebrating, as if your pain never mattered. And part of you wonders, do they even feel anything at all? Do they ever stop and think about what they did to me? But what appears to be comfort now will not last forever, because there comes a day, and it always comes, when God stirs the conscience. You see, God doesn't always deal with people through consequences first. He often starts with their inner world. He sends whispers to their heart, quiet but persistent reminders of the wrong they've done. And when someone has buried their guilt deep enough, those whispers become disturbances. Their sleep begins to break, their joy begins to lose taste, their comfort, once so secure, becomes uneasy. They may not tell anyone, they may continue their public charade, but internally a storm brews, because the conscience is not dead, it's only dormant. And when God awakens it, it becomes impossible to ignore. The images of what they did to you start resurfacing, the sound of your voice, the memory of your kindness, the moment they chose cruelty over compassion. These things visit them, not as nostalgia, but as accountability. And while the world still sees them smiling, something is shifting. Their comfort zone begins to crack. The security they had built on your suffering starts to collapse. Not outwardly at first, but deeply spiritually. They will begin to feel a discomfort they cannot name, a haunting they cannot outrun. And no matter how many distractions they chase, the echo of what they did to you will remain. That is how God works when He fights your battle, not just by breaking circumstances, but by shaking souls. He lets the conscience become the battlefield. He allows them to live in the very comfort they build, until that comfort turns cold, unwelcoming, bitter, until the same peace they stole from you now hides from them. They'll reach for it in new relationships. They'll seek it in success. They'll look for it in laughter. But something will always be missing. That something is what they took from you and never returned. It's the apology they never gave, the healing they never sought, the guilt they never confronted. And until they do, their comfort will never again feel whole. This is not about punishment, it's about revelation. God is revealing to them what it means to sit with themselves, fully and honestly, and as they sit, they will remember you. Not with pride, but with regret. Not with satisfaction, but sorrow. Because the conscience, once awakened, is relentless. It does not let them forget the soul they tried to break. There is a quiet victory that does not come with applause or trophies. It does not demand recognition. It simply is. It arrives like dawn after a long night, slow, silent, but undeniable. And for those who have suffered deeply at the hands of others, this kind of peace is not just a blessing, it is redemption. It is the evidence that God not only saw what was done to you, but that He also planned to rewrite the ending in your favor. He doesn't just restore what was lost, He transforms what was broken. And in that transformation, He gives you something more precious than revenge. He gives you peace. Peace is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of God in the aftermath of it. When they hurt you, they didn't just attack your emotions. They attacked your spirit. They attempted to rob you of your light, your calm, your joy. They fed you bitterness and walked away, hoping it would stain you permanently. But what they didn't realize was that bitterness doesn't belong to you. It belongs to those who create it. You swallowed it, yes, but you never became it. And because you refused to become what they were, heaven began preparing something else for you. Peace. This peace doesn't always arrive immediately. It often comes after the crying has stopped, after the memories no longer sting like fire, after the desperate questions to God are replaced with trust. It grows quietly, like a healing scar, and suddenly one day you notice something remarkable. You're not heavy anymore. You're not angry. You're not even interested in revenge. You've tasted something better than justice. You've tasted the stillness of a soul that's no longer at war with what happened. Meanwhile, those who caused the storm in your life began to face one of their own. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's relentless, because while you were healing, they were hiding. While you were crying out to God, they were silencing their conscience. While you sought restoration, they avoided responsibility. And now, what they avoided begins to surface, not from your hands, but from life itself. They begin to struggle, not always visibly, but internally. The same bitterness they poured out begins to overflow in their own lives. Their relationships become strained. Their nights feel longer. Their joy becomes unpredictable. The laughter they once used to mask their cruelty now feels empty. And the peace they never gave to you becomes the very thing they cannot find. This is not about karma in the way the world defines it. It's about divine reordering. God does not repay evil with evil. He restores by revealing. And part of that revelation includes allowing those who fed bitterness to drink it for themselves, not as a punishment, but as a mirror. So they will know, so they will feel, so they will understand what they tried to dismiss. But you who suffered quietly, who endured without retaliating, you will walk in a different direction. You will not be dragged into the bitterness they created. You will not need to watch them suffer to feel validated, because your healing was never about them. It was about you reclaiming your spirit, your peace, your identity. And the most powerful part? They will see it. They will witness the calm in your eyes, the clarity in your words, the elevation of your life. They will notice that you have changed, but not in the way they thought you would. You didn't become cold, you became wiser. You didn't grow harder, you grew deeper. You didn't return the bitterness, you replaced it with peace. And that peace will speak louder than any confrontation ever could. There's a holy kind of silence that surrounds someone who has been healed by God. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't chase closure. It simply exists. And the one who caused the pain will eventually feel it, not as a challenge, but as a contrast. They will look at your peace and feel their unrest. They will remember the bitterness they gave and taste its return in their own lives. And you will walk freely, finally unchained, finally whole, not because justice screamed, but because peace whispered. In the end, what was meant to destroy you has only revealed who you truly are. You were handed bitterness, yet you did not become bitter. You were wounded, yet you did not make others bleed. You were broken, yet you turned to God instead of revenge. And that choice, that quiet, courageous choice, is why heaven has chosen to stand with you. The ones who hurt you may never apologize. They may never return to make things right. But justice is not always in their hands. It's in God's. He saw what they did when no one was watching. He heard the words you couldn't speak. He counted the tears you wiped alone. And now he responds, not with wrath, but with divine. You will not remain beneath their betrayal. You will not stay imprisoned by what they did. God is not only healing you, He is preparing a table where your peace will be served in the presence of those who tried to destroy it. A table where you will taste freedom while they are left to face the bitterness they created. So walk forward, not in anger, but in confidence, not in vengeance, but in peace, because the justice of God is not always thunderous. It is often silent, precise, and undeniable. And as it unfolds, you will see something far greater than revenge. You will see restoration. They gave you bitterness. God is giving you beauty. They left you broken. God is lifting you whole. They walked away, but God stayed. And that will always be enough.